Gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 3 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank the chairman, and I thank the chairman for his leadership on this issue for, unfortunately, the long time that we've been having to deal with this. I'm surprised. We watch the news, we see what's happening overseas and from afar, and we see the human tragedy that's occurring, and yet we're here debating an isolationism resolution to withdraw all military actions from the Middle East at a time when we see utter human tragedies. This is not the time, in fact, to halt military operations. I'd like to speak out quickly on an issue that I think underlines this whole debate. There's some that believe that if our foreign policy was simply nicer, if our foreign policy was more accommodating, or less focused on military power, then the world, and more importantly, our enemies would suddenly view America in a much different light. Or that we'd be facing problems that we are today, we wouldn't be facing them at all. This is a view that's pacifism or disengagement in the world, and it represents at best a naive worldview, and I think it is certainly an illusion. Ironically, as we debate the merits of this resolution, we have a case study in the illusion of pacifism or disengagement. The president laid down a red line against Bashar al-Assad in Syria. And in fact, the Russians supposedly gave the president an off-ramp in which he was able to exit and allow Bashar al-Assad to simply give up his chemical weapons. And when we saw that nicer new engagement by the United States, we did not see a peaceful Bashar al-Assad emerge realizing that he had simply misunderstood the United States. We saw the same brutal dictator that murdered his own people continued to be brutal and murdersome. Before we withdrew troops completely from Iraq, many implored the president to leave a residual force, and we didn't do it. And we have now the next iteration of al-Qaeda named ISIS. And that may be a bit of an oversimplification, but it is in essence what we see. I think it's fine to have a debate about AUMF in this chamber, and we should. What the president gave us was an AUMF that not only limited his ability to fight ISIS, but limited the ability of the next president of the United States to fight and destroy ISIS. And I personally won't be a party to tying the president's hands. I was in, Mr. Speaker, in Iraq just a few months ago, and I saw the human tragedy that occurred. I stood in a UN refugee camp and had a little girl come up to me and explain through a translator how her parents were killed by ISIS and how she ran away fleeing for security. And I realized the important role that the United States of America plays, the unfortunate burden that we must bear for world security. Mr. Speaker, we either stand up and fight ISIS now, or we sit on our knees and cower before them later. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.